All righty. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Welcome to Reach Cultural Stories Black History Month. We had a brief little technical difficulty, so we're restarting this. Thank you for everyone who's hanging in there. We are here with Nikita Lamar and Walton Smith, two amazing women entrepreneurs who have volunteered their time to tell us about them, what makes them, how they are trailblazing their industries, and thank you both for being here. So, Nikita, I'm going to start with you again. Thank you
Okay,
for your patience and go for it.
absolutely. So my name is Nikita Lamar. I am the managing attorney and founder of Lamar Legal Group in PLLC here in Houston. And my firm is based in Houston, but I live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And my firm focuses primarily on estate planning, probate, which is when somebody passes away without a will, and family law, so divorces, child custody, adoptions, and also recently trademark registration, which is in the business law field. Um, I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama, which is considered the seat of the civil rights movement. And I went to school went to undergrad in Tennessee at Tennessee State University, and then off to Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And I relate to Black history. I believe that was a question before. How do I relate to Black history? I mean, number one, I'm Black. I'm Black every day of the year. And even on a deeper level, I understand what it is to be Black and an entrepreneur, because there are things that we deal with that, other communities may not have to deal with. There's certain ways in which we're seen, and not seen. And so I relate very well to that. My grandparents were also entrepreneurs, different fields, but some of the same things, some of the same triumphs, some of the same difficulties. So understanding Blackness, transcends just what you see. And so I understand it on a lot of different levels. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Beautiful intro, as Walton mentioned before. Walton, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, my name is Walton Smith, and I am the founder and CEO of Black Women Owned, where we give Black women-owned businesses visibility through social and digital media to help increase their annual revenue. And we do that through our online business listing, but also our social platforms, because we know that the way that social media is now, it can change the trajectory of an entire business if the right people see it. So that's what we do. We started as a very small Instagram page and now have a listing of over 500 product and service-based businesses from Black women worldwide. So we're very proud about that. We also do programming, business trainings, but we have some in-person events too, to help our local, I'm in the Maryland area, we help our local Black women-owned businesses as well. And as far as relating to Black history, as Nikita said, I am Black history. I have an 83-year-old grandmother, a mom who was born in a segregated hospital, a family full of first or few in their communities to do certain things. And it's something that I've, as long as I can remember, I was learning about Black history in some capacity. And I'm happy, my husband and I are happy to do the same with our children. So that's how I relate to Black history.
Amazing. Thank you, Walton. Like I mentioned before, it's really cool to watch you two connect personally and professionally. I hope to see you guys have a great relationship out of this experience. And with that, I hope our speakers, can contact you guys and get in touch with things that they relate on, whether it's webinar related, business related, anything like that. So thank you again both for being here. All right, we're going to jump right into the questions. My first question is, how have your experiences as Black women influenced your journey as entrepreneurs, particularly in your fields of law and business consulting? Nikita, I'll start with you.
Uh, well, first of all, whether you're talking about over the United States or over Texas, Black people in general make up usually less than 6% of the bar. And in Texas, I think it hovers around 5%. And that is not a lot. That's not a lot of representation. And, I've known that even before I went to law school. And that was one of the reasons, one of the primary reasons that I, was drawn to that. Um, and, it sounds like it's daunting, but I still see, my black counterparts, black and brown counterparts every day, so we're here, but we do need to amplify those voices because the cases that are being submitted to the courts and things like that, they are cases where we're there. And so it would be good, it's necessary to have the representation on the benches, have the representation as far as, attorneys that you hire. So that being a part of this community, I understand what a privilege it is to be, in that 5-ish, sometimes 4-ish%, and how important it is to amplify, those voices, and amplify my voice as a Black attorney.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's important. It's good to see representation, but always needing more. And
Absolutely.
good to support those that you relate to, but continuing to, you're a trailblazer in the industry. So it's good to have people like you there that are super adamant about getting that representation there. Absolutely. Walton, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. I was very blessed to work under several Black women supervisors. And they showed me the way, the path to entrepreneurship, whether I was interning with them or volunteering or actually had a job. I learned entrepreneurship through the lens of a Black woman running a business. And so when it came time for me to start my own, I already knew the things that I needed to start doing because I've seen them be successful, and I've seen them be successful without the resources, unfortunately, and with little to no staffing, sometimes funding. I saw them become very scrappy and form something out of almost nothing a lot of the times. So that helped propel me. My own mother was an entrepreneur. She had her own law firm. We lived in North Carolina. So it's natural, that Black women are leading in business. It was just natural for me to see. So it made it very easy for me to make a decision when I found a project and a cause that I related to, it was a no-brainer because I had already just immersed in it.
What?
Oh,
Yeah, go
I'm
for it.
sorry.
No, you're good, Nikita.
I just wanted to say it's funny because it is a contrast between Walton and I in that respect. I ran from entrepreneurship. I was not interested. I was not interested. And a lot of that is because my grandparents were entrepreneurs. I worked with them. They were florists. And before that, before I was born, they ran a cafe, a restaurant. And it was actually the only restaurant that Black people could go to in Montgomery, Alabama, and actually sit down. During those times, you would have to order in the back of, a shack or in the back of the restaurant, and they would bring your food out to you that way. And so my grandfather, he was in the Air Force, came back. He was like, well, I don't want to work for anybody. So he thought about what was needed, and that was something that was needed. And so they retired for a couple years in their 40s, but they weren't ready to retire. And then after that, he thought about again, what do we not have? We don't have floors. Well, long story short, when I was born, they were full on in the florist business, and I was in the back. I was keeping books at 13 years old. And don't, you can't call the child labor law people on them now because they're already passed away. But it wasn't a bad thing. It was building something in me that I didn't know about at the time, And so it's a difference, it's a contrast because I didn't want to do it because I knew that it was difficult. I knew that it took so much time. And so that was the difference. But what'll happen or what's destined will happen. And if it's for you to be an entrepreneur, then that's what's going to happen. Because that's the only thing that worked for me after law school. So that's the difference between Walton and I.
Yeah, absolutely. And super important differences to highlight in how influential family, how influential community, how influential all of that is in I mean, Nikita, you said from 13, you were in the back doing that work, like even before you're officially, you know, a professional or even young professional, you have these influences in your life that really direct you. And so, you know, using your platform accordingly is important because little younger people look up to you and you don't always understand the influence that you have. But it is super important to see how, you know, maybe you don't see it for yourself, but leaders are leaders, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, and it's cool to watch you guys both develop from different paths that had different influences. Very, very cool. Thank you both. All right, kind of going off of the last question here, are there any unique challenges that either of you have faced in building your careers, and how have you navigated those challenges? And with that, is there any advice that you would give to other Black women entrepreneurs who aspire to pursue careers in the fields that both of you are in, considering those challenges and opportunities that you've encountered? Walton, I'll start with you.
Yes. So Nikita earlier was saying she's an idea person, and I am very much an idea person too. So sometimes execution can get a little bit murky. So a challenge for me was the systems and the back end of running a business, like having a process, understanding what I should register my business as, doing taxes, to be quite honest. Those were the things. I knew the idea. I understood the business aspect. Like I know how to make the money, but the other things that it took were a challenge for me. And it was interesting because those were not necessarily things that I saw when I was under the tutelage of all of these other women. I didn't see that back end of the creation of the system. The system was already in place. They already had an accountant. I wasn't able to hire an accountant. Thank goodness my dad's a retired one. So, you know, there's a little bit of information, but even then he's like, you better go look it up because listen, I'm retired. But those were my biggest challenges, were getting into the smaller parts, but very important pieces of running and sustaining a profitable business. And I just had to seek that information. And it was it was upsetting at first because I went into business thinking that I knew, you know, so many things. I have seen so many things. I had been in the room with all the people, and I was just lacking information. So I had to go seek that information. And sometimes that also meant paying for information, or consulting to make sure that I was completely aware of what was going on. And so I think for other entrepreneurs is not to be so stuck on the information that you know, but to seek other information that is correct. So if you need to hire someone, and I say that lightly because not everybody is in the place to hire someone. Regardless, we need to seek that information, whether that's a library, a free, there's graduate schools across the country that have clinics, but seeking that information when it comes to properly running your business is very important. And whether you are paying for it or finding another resource, it was something that is a must. So that was something I struggled with at first because I just thought that I had all this wealth of knowledge about running a business, and I really didn't. So that was how I handled it. I sought out resources, and I had to pay a few people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also speaks to everybody has their strengths. Everybody has avenues that they are very successful in. I know there's definitely areas where I am like, no way, not my territory. This is somebody else. And it is a team effort, and having, you know, supporters, whether, like you said, consultants, outside resources, family members, friends that, you know, you can lean on, and having a community to help build up what you're trying to build. That's super important. So fabulous. All right, Nikita, passing it on to you.
Absolutely. Delegation was, and I won't say it continues to be an issue because I am actually getting more into the delegation now. But one of the main things was hurdles was, you know, having to bootstrap my business financially. I mean, coming out of law school, usually you don't have a lot of resources. Your resources were spent when you were preparing for the bar and things like that. So you don't have a job necessarily. Now, I was a massage therapist at the time, so I could make a little money, but having to bootstrap the business was one of the, or has been one of the trying, avenues, but it's also caused me to be able to be more creative and tap into the creativity. And I'll give you an example. I, for the first time, was able to sit down with someone and plan out what 2024 was going to be, a strategic plan. I've had pieces of it, right? You have your goals and things like that, but an entire plan, to have a VIP day, sometimes it's 5K. And, people think that, oh, well, you're an attorney, you could pay for that. Well, I mean, it depends on who else I have to pay and what I have to do. And so I got that by bartering. I bartered with a professional who was excellent at her craft, and she needed something done legally. And so we had a contract. I know what I'm responsible for doing for you. You know what you're responsible for doing for me. And I don't think that as professionals, especially professionals who are Black and Black women, we don't tap into our networks enough. We don't. We don't do the bartering enough. And you can barter for all kinds of services. I barter for makeup services. I barter for a lot of different things. Not haphazardly. You have to have a rapport. But the times where I have, it's been so beneficial. And so that is what I would present as, to someone who is a Black attorney, specifically young Black attorney or just new Black attorney. I would tell them, you have the tools that you need. They just don't look like what somebody else's tools look like. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that you won't get to where you need to get to. But that was one of the things, and delegation comes kind of hand in hand with that, because when we think delegating, we automatically think paying somebody to do something, right? Because that's usually what you're doing. And so we clam up because we're like, oh, I don't have it. Well, you may. It's just different capital. Like, what other capital do you have? And as a professional, you have capital, but you just gotta, it's all in the way that you look at things. So I would offer to young women, particularly coming into, or just women in general, not young, because we have all different ages that are coming into law. But I would recommend them to tap into that creative side, because creativity just doesn't lie in certain areas. You have to be creative no matter what it is you're doing.
Absolutely. I think too, in law and just the legal industry, a lot of rules to follow, a lot of guidelines, and finding the creative, not Xing out your creative brain there. And how can I, like you said, different connections, different opportunities are made differently for everyone, and finding what works for you and finding the people that back you. Absolutely. I love what you said there. I think that's cool. It's cool to have legal and creative in the same sentence. I love that. I love that. That's great. Alrighty. How do you both believe that you leverage your identities and your experiences to bring about positive change, both in your communities and in your industries? Nikita, I'll start with you on this one.
Every area of law that I practice in, I bring my not only experience, but professional experience. I bring a bit of my personal experience. And I leverage that experience so that I can then relate better to my clients, understand their stories more. A couple of examples: family law. My life started off a little bit rough. My mom was younger. She wasn't quite ready, to be a parent. She needed some help. So my grandparents intervened through the courts, and I was a ward of the court. That's what they used to call it in Alabama. But I mean, it's just that they had custody of me. Now I understand. That's what they had custody of me. And so, I deal with those familial issues in what I do every day, practicing in the area of family law and understanding, people in those spaces, what they're going through, how the children may feel sometimes, because I can relate. Probate, same thing. Probate and estate planning. My grandfather died without a will. He died when I was in law school. I didn't have any money. The money that I spent was going back and forth, to court, trying to figure this thing out, still end up losing everything, that he had built, that he had worked for, land, property. But I didn't have the money, to do that. And then, there were debts associated. And understanding that if there was an estate plan, us going through probate would have looked totally different. And even if we had those debts, I would have been better equipped to handle those and still have something. So I speak from understanding what it's like to lose generational wealth. That's how I leverage that experience when I'm talking to people. I'm not just saying this, I understand. I understand what that looks like. And, in the area of trademark registration, just being an entrepreneur, understanding the importance of owning your intellectual property in a lot of these spaces. I've seen people's ideas get taken. I've seen people, lose names and, not be able to move forward the way that they had anticipated because, a lot of times they don't think that those ideas deserve protection, or they don't understand how. So every area that I practice in, I bring or I leverage my identity, my experiences, the experiences of my family, those stories, and I probably don't tell them enough. But this is a great start, so I appreciate being here. But that is how I leverage it. I don't exploit it, but I use it so that people can relate to me more, and hopefully they'll get the message that I'm trying to convey.
Absolutely. And there's so much strength in that authenticity, in that empathy for where somebody's at, and truly relating to that, on a personal and professional level. Understanding where people come from is so important in any industry, but especially, legal, and I'm sure Walton, you'll speak on this too, to be authentic and to feel and be in the shoes of people that you're helping or that you work with every day is so powerful. So that's amazing. That's very cool to hear about the intersections of personal and professional life there. Walton, over to you.
Do you mind repeating the question, because I want to make sure I'm answering it on the nose?
Absolutely. Yes. I said, how have you leveraged your identity and experiences to bring about positive change, both in your community and for your industry?
Oh my goodness. So as an entrepreneur, of course, you have other entrepreneur friends, you have other founder friends. So you're having conversations about your wins, but you're having conversations about your losses and your difficulties or opportunities, as we say sometimes in corporate. I was able to take information that I knew very specifically about grant applications and how they are, to be quite honest, intimidating. The vernacular, the statements that are requested, people don't even understand them sometimes, and that can stop someone from even beginning to complete a grant application. So last year we were able to pitch an info session that broke down very important pieces of a grant, and we had that conversation and we talked to the CEO of the organization that was providing the grant, so that people understood this is difficult, but it's not as difficult as you thought, because we're going to talk through it. And we're able to have several conversations where we are talking through challenges that entrepreneurs have and are sometimes not even going towards because they look difficult, or they seem difficult, but it's because of the lack of knowledge. So I'm very glad that we were able to partner with Grow with Google, and they break down the different marketing products and different Google products that entrepreneurs can use. And we ask those questions. Like, first of all, what does that word even mean? What is that acronym? Can you talk plain? Break it down for us. And I'm proud to be able to do that, one, because I've experienced it myself, or I just don't know, but my peers are saying the same thing. So with Black Women Owned, we really try to lower the barrier when it comes to understanding and having resources. I'm super proud that we're able to do that. And Nikita said something about exploitation. easy for organizations to, just because they are targeting to a group of Black women entrepreneurs, try to be exploitive. And that is something we don't do at Black Women Owned. So if you want to work with us, there's some things that you need to have in line and in check. We need to be able to use the tone that we use. We need to be able to send things how we want to send them. We will not be using your copy just because. So sorry, but that's not how it works over here. And I'm glad to be able to take my personal experiences with brands when I was in college on the corporate side and seeing how they kind of took advantage of partners, brand partners, simply because they were a big name. And we don't do that here at Black Women Owned. We will not allow you to get to you want to get to the Black women, we know that, but we're not going to allow you to say anything, use anything to do it. And we're going to make sure that there's value. So we're always fighting to make sure that if you want access to these women, you're going to treat them right. They are not just a number for you to have, and you will not be spamming them. Like, we will not even allow people to have it. There's a thing in, you're able to share emails with people when you have their consent. We don't do that at Black Women. We're not doing that. If you want to access them, you can go through us, or you can do it your way. So I went on a little tangent there, but I'm very proud that we are decreasing the barrier when it comes to resources, but also being a line of protection when it comes to brands reaching out to these very specific group of women. We don't allow it, not on our watch.
I love that. And important. It's super important. Making somebody feel protected, making those connections, and just continuing to create accessibility. That's really what this whole webinar is about, is accessibility. And, bringing this free to people is just super important to know everybody can do it when you have the right people on your team. So thank you both for sharing. Kind of going off of the last question a little bit, both of you are in traditionally white male dominated spaces. So what strategies have you employed to assert your presence and your expertise when historically and even in modern day, white men kind of rule your industries? So Walton, I'll start with you. You look like you have something to say.
I center Black women. That's my target audience. That's who I'm trying to help. If someone else would like to be a part of that, that's great. But my tunnel vision is not on any other group of people as far as the business is concerned. So that doesn't even come to mind to me, because I'm not competing with anyone. I am strictly trying to be a resource, and I speak to the people that I'm trying to be a resource for. I'm not thinking about what's happening in, this person got this person got that, or this company is doing this, that, or the other. I am simply focused on centering the needs of Black women entrepreneurs and making sure that they have the resources that they need to grow and scale. So while it is an industry, business consulting is an industry dominated by white males. It's just not something that is even a thought for us, because we are solely focused on our target audience, which is Black women entrepreneurs. Not saying that we won't work with other people. We absolutely will. We will absolutely take your money to market to these women. We will absolutely, create a grant with you. We will absolutely have an info session with you. But our focus is only those ladies, to be quite honest. And so that has come with a challenge sometimes, especially as I've had mentors say, well, maybe to open it up a little for your business, maybe you should, not work with, but try to reach other audiences. And I have simply had to say, no, that is not the vision. And wherever we're supposed to be, we will be. So that's how we operate. We focus and we center these women that we are trying to work with and be a resource for.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to what you said on the last question of accessibility. We are creating access. We are breaking down those barriers for Black-owned women businesses. So absolutely. Nikita, I'll
And
pass it to you.
I do want to say
Mhm.
it's not something that everybody can necessarily do.
Yeah.
So I'm extremely privileged to be able to fully center Black women entrepreneurs. That's not, as we live in a dominated world by other people, that's not something that everybody has the opportunity to do or the privilege to do. So I do want to say I feel blessed.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, it's very easy for me, but I know that in reality, in other worlds, that's not necessarily the norm. And it's definitely not what people want it to be now, as we have all types of lawsuits and bills and things of that nature. So I do want to say that I'm not out of touch with the fact that that's a privilege.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate that. But honing in on what your area and where you've been given that access and that expertise and, using it for positive work. So Nikita, on to you.
To be quite honest, I don't navigate, because to navigate, to me, it insinuates that you have to plan how you're going to direct your path. And that's not how we need to get out of that, as Black people, period, but specifically as Black women. I don't navigate. I am present. I am there. I show up. The fact that I am a Black woman attorney, that just is, my presence is, I am. I don't have to navigate anything. And I think that the more that we understand that, the better off everybody is going to be, and yes, the field of law, like I said, is white. It is white and it's male dominated. And I do recognize that. Being in Harris County in Houston, sometimes you forget, especially if you're in the family law courts and things like that. You see so many. I see so many of my colleagues, the people that I went to school with, and they look like me. But when I step outside of that, and I go to Chambers, I go to Grimes County, I go, to even just to the probate court, in Harris County, I'm quickly reminded when we're walking down the halls and we're looking at judges' pictures and associate judges' pictures, I'm reminded of that. But just because I'm reminded doesn't mean that I need to change how I walk through those halls or what I do. And as I've grown, I've understood that this wasn't always what I thought. I did think you had to strategize and figure out how to get in there with, and no, and I wanted to kind of speak on, even saying asserting your presence. I'm out of that mindset as far as asserting my presence simply because I am a Black woman. No, if I'm going to assert my presence, it's because I'm here to do what I'm here to do, right? And so I think that I know that it has to be, in order to make these things better, it has to be a switch, in the way that we look at these things, and for us to get away from feeling as if we have to assert ourselves in these spaces where they keep telling us that they don't want to see us, right? Now, I understand the importance of having people in those spaces sometimes, but that's not the only way, that's not the only way. You create your tables. You go where you are respected. You go where you are valued, and that works out for you and for the community that you're trying to assist. So that's kind of how I now look at, that type of thing, because that's the very common question, especially when you're talking about the field of law, because we all know what that looks like.
Absolutely. No, and I completely hear what you're saying about navigating, and that gives us this framework of, oh, we need to figure out this unique way to get in. And you're so right. I'm so glad you said something on that, because that also changes things for me as well. I think I mean, I identify as a white woman, and, you know, I still struggle like, oh, well, because I'm a woman, maybe I need to speak to people differently, or maybe I need to do this. Like, I second guess myself as a young professional there a lot. But show up as you are and make that the new, it's not about working into this framework that's in place. It's about finding, like you said, the people at your table and showing up as you are. I love what you said there. That's going to be like something I take away for the rest of my life. So I love that. Thank you for that. Thank you. All right, on to the next question I have here. How do you prioritize self-care and maintain resilience in the face of systemic barriers and societal expectations? This can be self-care, you know, professionally, personally. What do you do for you, and what to keep going at the speed that you're going? And what advice would you give, I guess, to any entrepreneurs, anybody out there, you know, who's actively looking to start their own thing? Walton, I'll start with you.
Well, I am a mother of two, and my first child, I was so like, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to just tough it out. And I just don't believe in toughing it out anymore when it comes to my mental health. I am gone. I will take a mental break. My family will stay somewhere, like they will stay home, and I will go to a library, go to a mall, go to a gym. I take my time, and it's the same way with business. I will take my time to take a I know we're talking about how you take self-care, but in business sometimes that self-care is a bit of a break. Um because you don't want to burn out. And I've had to learn how to pace myself throughout my year to ensure that at the end of the year, I'm not completely shut down. So in business, I will set myself up where I will plan these things. And if I do not get them all done by the end of the year, I'm okay because I got one or two things like fully done at the end of the year. And I think that it took a while for me to take it easy on myself. I have, although I don't know how long I'll be here, what I need to get done is not going to get done in a day. It's not going to get done in a year. And realizing that and taking the breath to slow down and process and be in the moment that things are happening, that has helped me a lot because I would go from, okay, we had this program, let's go to the next one. But I need to sit with the data, the experience. I need to sit with those things so that I can thoroughly be ready for the next moment. So I take a lot of time now, and I'm not so caught up in how much we can get done like in a month or in a year, but I'm more focused on the impact we make in the moments we're able to do things. And it sounds like it's easy, but it's been very hard because you're in this world where people want to see you doing things, and we equate, being seen with actual impact, and that's not necessarily what it is. You can be very impactful and everyone doesn't know your name, and that's fine. Um, so I had to get in a space where I had to sit down with myself and be okay with taking a break, okay with being in the moment, and not completing every single thing on my list in a year. I'll say that. So like we have these yearly plans. Nikita was talking about strategic plans. You don't necessarily have to get everything done, but finding the mental space to be okay with that has been work for me. Be
Absolutely.
I've attached my value sometimes to the work that I do, and that's not I'm valuable because I'm here. I'm valuable because I'm a human. And as a business owner, that's a tricky feeling because you want to be successful and you want to, be profitable, but taking those times to be still, um, be in the moment and take those breaks both personally and in business have been very, very helpful for me. That's how I keep sane, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. And like you said, you know, not checking everything off, but reflecting and taking the time to appreciate what you do accomplish, not only as a business owner, but as a mother. There's so many things where it's like you have to live in the moment, like you said, take the wins for the wins as they are, and not punish yourself for what you haven't gotten done. Like you said, strategic plans are there. They're great for goal setting, But I mean, I feel like also the pandemic, like you never know what is going to happen. You have so many things happen personally, professionally, to you, to, you know, a whole community, to whatever it is. So taking the wins, you know, and taking that time to sit in the moment and appreciate what you've done and reflect on how you're going to go forward. I think that's super important. Thank you for sharing that. Nikita, over to you.
So interestingly enough, self-care is how I ended up in Puerto Vallarta. In 2020, really 2019, 2018, on through the pandemic, I was so tired. I was not taking very good care of myself at all. I still struggle with that, but it's better now. But I was burnt out. And I saw myself being like some of the attorneys that I said I didn't want to be like, in terms of being mad about what you got to do every day. I don't want to do that. Why? I could go work for somebody to be mad about what I do. And so for me, the self-care was figuring out how I could enjoy my life in conjunction with building a business, and finding a way in which I could do that that would not kill my bottom line, you know, where I could, because I can't go out yet and get $100,000 loan, right? To restructure or to do all these things. So I thought about the fact that I do like to travel. I love travel, and I don't get the opportunity to stay in these spaces for a very long time. And so, you know, I knew I wanted to transition from living in Texas, not having my business there, but living there. So I just had to think, like, how can I change my circumstance? Because I knew I had to take myself out of where I was in order to tap more into that creativity. I wanted a different lived experience, not just moving somewhere. No, I wanted a different lived experience. And so a lot of times we think that somebody else is responsible for giving us that. But sometimes you have to create that for yourself. And so for me, it was figuring out how to practice law here, you know, while living abroad, and and being a virtual firm. And I listened to myself, and I'm so glad I did, because that's what I needed. It may not be what everybody needs, but you have to be specific to what it is that you need. And that's what I needed in order to kind of get that creativity going and things like that, because, you know, nobody else is responsible for me having this different experience, and for me being happier, you know, in the position that I'm in, and building the culture, you know, around you, where you are free and other people are free to take care of themselves. That's what I do. I just talked to my paralegal. Her son is sick. I didn't know that. I knew she was slower to respond. And so I checked in and I was like, you okay? And so she was like, yeah, you know, Jack's sick. Okay, no worries. Just let me know. You take the time out to do. That's the culture, that even being in that culture, that to me is self-care for me, you know, because I'm not building a toxic culture that I hate being in. You know, that wouldn't make any sense. So the advice that I would give to young entrepreneurs, or to entrepreneurs just who are new to entrepreneurship, even if they're not young, would be to lean into your own intuition, and to lean into the power of the pivot. You don't have to do things the way that other people think you should do them, even in professional settings where it is very black and white. Law is traditional. That's what we're taught. It is this, this, and this. And no, it can't be, because the world is evolving. So if the world is evolving and the law is not, then that doesn't coincide. And it's catching on, but it's going to take a long time, because that institution, as we know, or institutions, are very white bread, you know, very male centered. But that's why a lot of times this has to start with you, you know, and the culture that you're building.
Absolutely. And listening to your gut and establishing your own culture internally that you have been able to radiate onto, you know, other staff members of yours or people that you work with, so important. All right, we're getting to the end here. I've got a couple more questions for you guys, so thanks for hanging in. My next question is, what role do you see technology and digital innovation playing in advancing the visibility and opportunities for Black women entrepreneurs, especially in traditional sectors like law and consulting? And how have you, as professionals, utilized these technologies to benefit your career? And I guess what advice would you give on how to use technology, what's worked for you and what hasn't, all that good stuff? Nikita, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all because I think I may have a technical issue. I've been using my earbuds and I thought I charged them up enough, but I don't know. So I may have to exit and enter back. But for right now, I think we're good. But technology is really important. I mean, we're using it everywhere. Everybody has access to it, and that's why when I found out about Walton, I mean, her work is so important because social media has can make or break you at times. It can give you the tools that you need or the access that you need if the right people see you. That's where a lot of the communities come from. A lot of people refer to me, and I think I was telling you before, I would stay behind the scenes and, thinking that I didn't need to be present, but that's not true. Technology is something that I think we all should use, but everyone doesn't have access to those tools and they don't have access to the information, right? And so I think it's super important for us to find partnerships within the community, people who have expertise within the community, so that, and people who understand us, who understand what it is to be in this community, what we need, make those connections. But I don't see technology being taken out of the equation at all. And so it's super important. And I hope to find ways even to utilize it more on my end.
Absolutely. I mean, I found both of you on LinkedIn, which was amazing. And it's cool to be able, it's amazing the things that you learn, the ability to reshare resources. And, I mean, the three of us are sitting here because of LinkedIn. So I just think that's cool. It's modern and being able to use it, but it is a presence that can be, at times scary. And when, you have to watch yourself there. Absolutely. So Walton, I'll pass it to you.
Technology is like the lifeblood of the work that we do at Black Women Owned. We are venturing out into doing in-person things, but we're connected to women across the world because of technology. So like Nikita saying, it's not going anywhere. I do think that I would love to see us get to a place where like AI is now, being disruptive in the technology space, but AI is also already white male driven. And so we need to get to a place where everyone has access to these tools, because as we create these tools and there are certain people creating them, they will only benefit certain people. And that creates an even wider gap when we're talking about just access. So I do see some people working on access to artificial intelligence and just digital access in general for other people. So Black and brown people, entrepreneurs, children. There are children who don't even have access to the internet. So, as that work is being done, I'm very happy to see that. And Black Women Owned will continue to try to push for those things and be that bridge to other people. That's why I love our partnership with Grow with Google, because we are that bridge to some information, that digital information that can easily be done by yourself, as opposed to hiring someone else before you're ready to do so. So it's a very important piece. Technology isn't going anywhere. We just need to have technology in the right hands. And as of right now, it's a little bit limited, but
Yeah.
I'm faithful. I am faithful. I'm seeing
too.
people get out there and learn the things and have the access to what they need to make this world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, trying to get back out in person, that's something we're doing as well with our trainings and everything. And COVID showed us a different way to connect, to stay intertwined with what people are doing, and, being able to do in person, but still uphold virtual stuff and connect. Like, I mean, you guys are in a completely different part of the country than me. So, and I can have this amazing conversation with you. So the power in that, absolutely. All right, guys, final question I have for you today is, do you have a resource such as a book, magazine, podcast, tool, or technique that you would recommend to the audience to continue their learning when it comes to allyship, to women entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, specifically, how yourself have gotten yourself to the point that you are today? Anything that you want to share with our viewers? Walton, I'll start with you.
I besides God, I believe I've gotten here by doing the research. And I think that sometimes that can be lost in the digital world where we have such access to people, we kind of lose a little bit of formality. Sometimes we lose manners, but I've been able to navigate this digital era that we're in and still utilize just like common business, I don't want to say rules, common business expectations. So if I'm interested in working with someone, I'm going to just have a greeting. I'm not going to say, hey, what's up? I've been watching you for a while. While there are brands that are okay with that, I have researched who to do that with. So understanding how to utilize this digital system and doing the research to know when I reach out to whoever I'm trying to speak with, knowing the best way to do it. I've just found a way to I don't know. I am very heavy on social media. I read a lot when it comes to the trends. I immerse myself in community-based organizations that speak to my target audience. So all of those resources help me find a way to better our business by knowing how to contact them. And I think that getting a contact is one of the biggest things when it comes to growing your business and having those partners and having those bartering relationships. You need to know how to speak to these people, and doing that research and being immersed in community and trying to learn from other economic development programs have really helped me. So in college, I used to say like I'm a little bit of a sleuth, but it's important. You have this access to this new digital world, but there's some things that we need to dig deeper for. So I definitely encourage all entrepreneurs, as you are reaching out to different organizations or looking for community members or consumers, you do a little bit of extra digging. There's so many reports out there. There are so many programs out there who will give you like a holistic source of knowledge. And I can't pinpoint anyone because I'm just tuned into my feed is just like it's the same when it comes to resources. I'm constantly seeing them. So immersing myself in that has been very important for how we get in touch with people and how people get in touch with us. And I think that as a entrepreneur or someone newer into the entrepreneurship lifestyle, it's going to be very important for you to understand how to garner contacts and keep them.
Absolutely. And that common language is something I struggle with. I'll get really, in my zone and like, this makes sense to me, but it doesn't always make sense to other people. And I forget that often. And it's something I'm working on, but understanding how to communicate and meeting people where they're at. And, maybe you have this goal, especially if you're providing them a service, you have this goal for their organization, but they're like, whoa, that's way out of my margin, way out of where my head's at. Meeting them where they're at, super important, because maybe you guys have different end goals, but at the same time, how you can partner with that person. So for sure, that's a great advice I need to take myself. So good for me to know. Nikita, same question to you.
If we are talking about entrepreneurs specifically in the area of law, I would say my recommendation would be to find a mentor. And there are plenty of people who would be willing to serve in that role or in that capacity. Even in a mentor, I think a lot of times even people who are being asked, they think that that means that they're responsible for building that person or doing everything. But no, you can have different mentors in different areas. You know, you can have one mentor because they work in the area that you're interested in going into. You can have another one if you still have that same interest over here, but you want to run your own business. This person may not run their own business, so they can't speak to that. So, you know, you don't want to have 10 people telling you things, but you know, it's okay to diversify when it comes to mentorship and to, you know, you're basically carving out what that mentorship looks like on both sides, what the expectations are, but having someone to assist you is so important. You know, I was lucky in that I had a lot of mentorship in how to practice law, but not necessarily how to run a law practice. And those are two different things because one is about business and finances and all of that. And you know, I'm still learning in that area, to be honest with you, you know, but that's what we do. We learn and we grow. And no matter what, you know, I'm sure in other professions it would be the same as, you know, like a good thing would be to find a mentor. But specifically in the area of law, I can say that that is really important. And then another thing is, like I said earlier, lean into the power of the pivot. If you're doing something and you don't want to do it, if it does not sit right with you, if it does not align with you, you know, you have the power to change that. You can't look at anybody to do that for you because those feelings and those things, those are specific to you. And it's a reason why you're being called out of something. It's a reason why you're being called to something. So that's leaning into that intuition again, you know, and using that to be okay with pivoting because you don't have to stay in a space just because people say you should or they're used to you being there. You know, you navigate those things. And I wish that someone would have spoken those words to me earlier, right? Because we all don't have the rearing as far as parents who, you know, communicated that. And not because they didn't want to, it's just maybe it just never came up. Maybe they didn't know, you know? So I wish that someone would have told me that. Last thing, every type of business and all money ain't good money. That's it. That's all.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. And finding people to support you in, like you said, following your intuition, following your gut, following your path, and the freedom that your path can change. And that's okay. I think, especially in our education trajectory, it can change. Your interests, life changes, you change, always changing. So giving the freedom for that. Absolutely. Well, you two, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. This was an amazing webinar. Both of our speakers' LinkedIns are linked on our website. If you guys want to go, shoot them a message, connect with them, see what they're up to. This recording will also be posted so you two can share it, as well as our network, share it with whoever. And Nikita and Walton, I will be in touch with you guys, but thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great meeting you both. I'll be
Absolutely.
talking to you, Walton.
You already know it. Yes, ma'am.